I believe is a tomb figure from the Tang Dynasty. I've kept this figure in a box because it's very fragile and I believe it could be valuable and or historic.
Going to walk through the doors at the gold and silver pawn shop, but sometimes it's something truly one of a kind. From ancient artifacts and historical treasures to items no one expected to see in a pawn shop, these are the rarest pieces ever featured on Pawn Stars. Even the experts were stunned. We'd start this with this gentleman who walked into the pawn shop and he had something quite interesting to sell. The man meets up with Chum at the counter and he tells Chum that he has a bronze burial statue from the Ming Dynasty. Now, that's not something you get to hear or see every day. Chum takes a look at the statue and he is very intrigued by it. When it comes to old artifacts, you can bet that Chum is going to be very interested.
Pretty good. What do you got here?
I have a bronze burial statue from the Ming Dynasty.
The Ming Dynasty, huh? Yeah, I know I've seen this creature before. Definitely not a real animal.
I kind of agree with Chum on that one. This kind of statue looks like the ones you find in the museum. The customer who brought it in says that he has had it for about a year, and he is afraid that he is going to damage it if he does not get rid of it as soon as possible. Something this old is definitely going to be worth a lot of money. Let's just hope that the price he wants is not going to be over the roof.
I believe it's 22 karat gold inlay Chinese writing.
I'm not sure if it's inlaid because I think it would have been cut into the mold when they poured this, and I think this circle would be a lot more.
That's actually true. Every other part of the statue from the Ming Dynasty seems to be aging, but the gold on the statue seems like it was freshly painted. The customer believes that the statue has 22 karat gold inlay Chinese writing all over its body. Chum takes a close look at it and he feels like the gold was painted on the statue after it was made, and that raises so many questions.
30,000 is a lot of money. It's not out of the realm of what something like this could be worth. I truly don't know if this is from the Ming Dynasty, but I do know that this creature has significance.
When you hear the figure $30,000, there's no way you don't reach out to an expert. Chum does not know a lot about this particular statue. He asks the customer how much he wants for it, and the customer says that he is looking to get $30,000 for the statue. Chum already has some worries about the statue, so he tells the customer that he would have to bring in his expert to take a look at the statue to know more about it and determine its value.
Where did you find this thing?
I actually got it at an estate sale, in which they claimed it was a burial statue from the Ming Dynasty.
At least we now know that the statue has absolutely nothing to do with the Chinese culture. Chum's expert makes his way to the pawn shop and he immediately takes a look at the statue that the customer claimed to be from the Ming Dynasty. He then tells Chum that the statue is in no way related to China, but is actually a griffin, a mythological creature that has the wings of an eagle and the body of a lion. That just sounds like an animal from a Harry Potter movie.
That was the first time people started creating griffins in bronze. And those markings are in gold, but I think they've happened after the fact.
Damn. I'm sure this customer is going to wish that he had the statue authenticated before bringing it into the pawn shop. After the expert is done talking about the history of the statue, Chum asks him how much he thinks the statue could be worth. The expert proceeds to say that if the statue were not authenticated, it would be worth between $1,500 and $3,000. But if it were to be authenticated, it could sell for as high as $175,000. That's some serious money right there.
You heard what the doc said. How you feeling?
Well, he said it could be worth $175,000.
You don't have the paperwork to make it worth $175,000. With that being said, I'm looking more on the art side of this.
Well, there goes that deal. You could already tell that this customer was not going to take the $1,000 that Chum offered him. The customer was initially excited that the expert said the statue could sell for as high as $175 if it was authenticated. Since that was not the case, getting that amount of money was not going to happen. After talking for a bit, the customer told Chum that he would get it authenticated and bring it back to the pawn shop. Let's hope that works out for him. Now what's next?
How's it going, man?
Pretty good. How can I help you?
I have something you may be interested in. Please feel free to take a look.
All right. What exactly is it?
I believe it's a figurine from the Tang Dynasty.
Looks like today is all about ancient artifacts, and Chum is having quite a day getting to take a look at these artifacts. Now, this customer brings in what he called a tomb figure from the Tang Dynasty. He has kept the figure in a box because, though fragile, he believes that it could be valuable and also historic. Looking at the figure, you can actually tell that it's going to have a very interesting history.
It was a gift actually to my parents, and they handed it to me.
What do you know about it?
Not that much. The research I've done, it actually pins it to the Tang Dynasty, supposedly, but we don't know.
Looks like the Tang Dynasty was a very interesting culture back in the day. Chin says that the Tang Dynasty was considered the golden era of China. They ruled for over 300 years and grew to become the greatest nation in the world. The statue was usually buried in tombs that belonged to very wealthy people. The customer who brought it in says that the statue was initially owned by his parents, but was later passed down to him.
Although it does have some cracks and some dirt, it's still very displayable, which is a good thing with a statue like this.
Right.
That did not come as a surprise. Chum and the customer round up their conversation about the tomb figure from the Tang Dynasty, and Chum then goes on to ask the customer how much he wants for it. The customer looks at the figure and he tells Chum that he wants $8,000 for the item. Chum then responds by saying that he really does not know much about the figure, so he would have to get his expert to come tell him if the figure is really from the Tang Dynasty.
So it's a tomb attendant, and in this case it's a musician. They would have been placed in the tomb to play music in the afterlife.
We can all agree that the doubt about the tomb figure that the customer claimed to belong to the Tang Dynasty has been cleared. Chum's expert is in the pawn shop, and the first thing he does is to agree with the customer by saying that the figure does belong to the Tang Dynasty. He then adds that the statue was carved in a way that represented whatever talents or instruments the owner had before the individual passed away. It was believed that the talent or instrument was needed by the individual in the afterlife.
So if something this pristine came out of a tomb, one of the things that they would have done is to carefully remove all of this dirt.
Now, that's not a good sign. You can see the fear in the customer's face. The expert picks up the tomb figure from the Tang Dynasty and starts to examine it. The first thing he notices is that there's some dirt on some parts of the figure, and that should not be, because if this figure was truly brought out of a tomb years ago, the dirt on it would have been carefully cleaned. The second thing he notices is that when you flick the figure with your thumb, it should give a certain kind of sound, and this particular figure is not giving that sound.
It's made of 41% zinc and 14% titanium. Titanium was first used in white paints about 1920. That tells me, sadly, that the piece was made after 1920.
Ouch! Did the expert just say $50 on a good day? That definitely just ruined this customer's day. The expert wanted to try out all his options, so he pulled out one of his tools and examined the figure one more time. Apparently, the figure was made of 41% zinc and 14% titanium. This is not good because those materials were used after the year 1920. This figure was made long before 1920. This figure has been ruled off as a fake.
Well, unfortunately, Bob said it's not from the Tang Dynasty, and not being so and having a $50 value, I'm not going to be able to make you an offer on it. It's going to be a pass for me.
I appreciate you looking at it and having an expert come in. I really do.
All right, well, thank you. Have a good day.
You too, man. Thank you.
Oh well, there's really nothing he can do about the situation. The expert did a thorough investigation of the tomb figure from the Tang Dynasty, and it turned out to be a fake. Chum told the customer that a deal could not happen since the expert already claimed that it was fake. The customer accepted his loss and left the pawn shop with the figure and empty pockets. It must really suck to be in his shoes.
It's a Tibetan Kapala. They use these in Buddhist and Hindu Tantra, like rituals and stuff.
This thing's really staring me down. You ever have a stare off with it?
Let's be honest, this item is very cool and very scary at the same time. You don't want to wake up with that face staring at you in the middle of the night. This customer walks into the pawn shop holding what he called a Tibetan Kapala that he was hoping to sell. The customer says that he is a collector and dealer of human bones, skulls, and other oddities. He says that this one is in really good shape, and he wants to see how much he can make from its sale.
They've been making these for quite a long time. They know that Kapala basically means skull, and this would be real human skull right here. And the way they would get these is they would have like burial sites where
And now we get to hear the scary part about this skull. Chum gets down to talking about the item, and he seems to know quite a lot about it. He says that this skull has been in existence for a long time. The Tibetan Kapala skull was usually made with an actual human being skull. There would be burial sites where people would dismember a person and throw their bones out, and someone would come down, pick up the skull, and then decorate it with different jewels and carvings. Scary, right?
Well, I'm looking to sell it and get about $4,800 for it.
Okay, I'm intrigued by it, but the problem is there's so many different types of metals and stones on them that...
Well, $4,800 does seem like a pretty decent amount if you ask me. They end their conversation about how cool the Tibetan Kapala is and get down to the price. Chum asks the customer how much he wants for it, and he says that he is looking to get about $4,800 for the Tibetan Kapala. Chum sees the price is fair and tells him that due to the fact that there are a lot of metals on the skull, he would need an expert to come help him determine the price.
The Kapalas that you normally see that have been used ritually, they're almost always made out of silver and definitely human. Human jawbone, human cranium, a very ornate Kapala.
Seems like the Tibetan Kapala is not as old as Chum thought it would be. The expert finds his way to the pawn shop and immediately begins to inspect the Tibetan Kapala. The first thing he notices about the skull is that it's too decorated. He explains that this type of skull was usually used for rituals, and the fact that this has so many designs means that it was not used for rituals. Secondly, the fact that it's made of silver indicates that it was made between the years of 1980 and 1990, which was for the attraction of tourists.
How much is it worth?
To him, priceless.
If I was gonna sell this in my shop, what could I expect to get for it?
Based on the age, worth about $1,000.
Well, that's a few thousand short of what the customer was hoping to get from selling the Tibetan Kapala. The customer rounds up his inspection of the skull, and Chum wastes no time in asking the expert how much he would value it. The expert then says that due to the fact that this particular Tibetan Kapala was made in modern times, it would be valued at $1,000. Let's see if Chum is going to offer this customer a deal.
He says it's worth $1,000, but I'm at 400.
Ooh, yeah, that's a lot lower than I'd like to go on it. I couldn't do 4.
I guess that's the best choice for this customer. He definitely did not think that the price would go from $4,800 down to $1,000. Chum offered the customer $400 since the expert valued the Tibetan Kapala at $1,000. The customer tells Chum that the price is just too low, and he thinks that he can sell the Tibetan Kapala for a much higher price. Apparently, no deal was made. Now let's see what's next.
What do we have here?
All I know about it is some sort of Roman statue that my great uncle gave to me.
Okay, well, it looks old.
This lady sure has her hopes high. For her sake, I hope that she is not disappointed in the end. She walks into the pawn shop with an item and meets up with Rick at the counter. She shows Rick an item that she believes to be an ancient Roman artifact. She says that it's in pretty good condition, and she wants to sell it because some of her family members have sold ancient artifacts and made quite a lot of money.
The Romans were aesthetic about everything. And this right here, I don't think it's a statue of any kind. For some reason, I'm thinking there's some sort of function here.
Rick might be onto something here. He does agree that the item the last claims to be an ancient Roman artifact is actually ancient, but he does not think it has any significant history behind it. He worries about the artifact because it does not seem to be completely intact, but at the same time, old artifacts with all their parts intact are very hard and rare to find. But could Rick be right about this artifact not having any significant value to it?
So how much you want for this?
$15,000.
Sounds a little steep, but you never know. Let me call somebody up. He will definitely be able to date it. We just have to figure out what it is and go from there.
Sure.
I guess that's the best way to handle the situation. Rick really does not know a lot about this particular ancient Roman artifact, and he is not ready to take a gamble on something he is not sure about. He asked the lady how much she wanted for the item, and she told him that she wanted $15,000 for the ancient Roman artifact. As always, Rick wants to reach out to one of his experts to come have a look. Let's see how that goes.
This is a Roman bronze chariot rein guide. Really, think of it this way. You're on a chariot, 2 horses, reins in your right hand, reins in your left, and you need a guide so that those reins stay in there.
And that right there is a good first sign. This is why Rick never skips an opportunity to call in an expert. Now, the expert finds his way to the pawn shop and he gets right to it. He takes a look at the ancient Roman artifact and he says that it's a Roman bronze chariot rain guide. Basically, it was like the steering for a chariot back in the day. He brings out his device to test if it's made of bronze, and the device confirms that it's actually made of bronze.
So, what do you think it's worth?
In this condition, this rarity, 5,000 bucks.
Oops, those are not the figures this lady was hoping to hear. You can see the disappointment in her face. The expert finishes up with his inspection, and the Roman bronze chariot rain guide checks out to be an original piece. He then values the item and tells Rick that it's worth about $5,000. That just wipes the smile off the lady's face. At this point, I'm not sure this lady is going to want to make a deal with Rick.
I'll give you $2,000.
How about 4,000?
No.
3,000.
No. I will give you 2,500 bucks, not a penny more.
Okay, deal.
You would have taken less, wouldn't you?
Well, it's too late for him to make her another deal. For a second there, I honestly thought that the lady was not going to take the price that Rick offered her. Since the expert placed the value at $5,000, the lady told Rick that she wanted the exact $5,000, but obviously that was not going to happen. Rick offered the last $2,000, and she decided to up the price by $500. They made a deal, and it was a win-win.
This is a golden coral rosary from a famous shipwreck, the 1715 fleet.
That's cool.
Coral was really popular and inexpensive around this time period because they realized that you could take a few cannons and start blasting coral reefs.
Now let's be honest, that's actually a very cool rosary. Even Rick could not take his eyes off it when the customer brought it out of the box. This dude walks into the pawn shop with a 1715 Treasure Fleet rosary that he is looking to sell. The customer buys and sells relics and artifacts from different famous shipwreck sites. He got the Toasty almost a year ago, and he hopes to use the money he makes from selling it to purchase the golden box that the rosary was found in.
So, how much do you want for this?
I'd like to get 75,000.
If you had this in like 1987, you could have got $150,000 for it.
Seems like Rick won't need an expert to handle this customer. Rick wasted no time and went straight to the point. He asked the customer how much he wanted for the 1715 Treasure Fleet rosary, and the customer told him that he wanted $75,000. Those numbers took the breath out of Rick's mouth. Rick told the customer that the price was not going to work, and the best he could do was to offer him $12,000. Is this customer going to take that price?
I mean, I'd give you like 12 grand for it.
Come down to like 48.
I mean, literally my highest price would be 13 grand. Okay?
I appreciate that.
All right, well, have a good one.
Okay.
Change your mind, give me a call.
Okay, will do.
I can't argue with that. That ship was definitely not going to sail. Rick explained to the customer that if he had brought the rosary in 1987, he could have gotten up to $150,000 for it. And that's because there were hardly any shipwrecks found. Sadly, nowadays, shipwrecks are constantly being found and the market is flooded with treasure. So buying the rosary for $75,000 won't be a smart buy for him. In the end, no deal was made.
All right, Pops, you know anything about ducks from Colima, Mexico?
A little bit. You liked rubber duckies when you were a kid. Filled the bathtub up with them. He had a blast with them when he was like 3.
Did she just say that the duck has magic powers? That's quite interesting. Who knew ducks could have magic powers? Now this lady makes her way to the pawn shop. She shows Corey and Rick a duck that she believes to have magic powers. The reason she wants to sell the duck is because everything around the duck started to fall down and she just found it very weird. Now she wants to get rid of it. I still can't believe she said the duck has magic.
So, I mean, what do you think it was used for? Were you supposed to drink out of it or something?
It was probably something ceremonial. They truly believed that the animals, after you passed away, they would guide you to the next world.
That definitely made Rick's spider sense tingle a bit. Rick talked about the history of the duck and he said that ducks like this were usually used to guide people into the afterlife. The lady then said that since she got the duck, weird things have been happening in her house. Items on the shelves would fall, and sometimes she would hear very weird noises. That just sounded like she was in a horror movie. Corey does not seem to be moved by what she said.
How much are you looking to get out of this?
About 4,000.
It's got me intrigued because it could be very, very old, but it's in incredible condition, which is kind of scary.
Well, it seems like Rick might actually be interested in buying this particular duck, even with everything the lady has said about the duck. He asks her how much she wants, and she says that she would like to walk away with $4,000. Rick's worry is that the duck seems to be in such perfect condition given the fact that it's very old. He wants his expert to come take a look at the item and see if it's actually worth $4,000.
That is quite the duck. I can tell you a couple of things about it. 2,000 years ago, they made animals to go into a tomb, and they'd lay the body and they'd place these animals around.
And it just keeps getting creepier and creepier. If I were to be in the pawn shop, I'd have lost interest in buying the duck. The expert comes in and he has some very interesting things to say about the duck. He tells Rick that the duck was supposed to be someone's dinner in the afterlife, and that's why it was usually put in the tomb of people who passed away. If the expert says another creepy thing about the duck, I am going to have a heart attack.
So what's it worth?
It's authentic, it's old, it's rare, it's stunning. 8,000.
Okay.
Ow! Maybe we can put the creepy nature of the duck aside for a second. That's some good money right there. The expert rounds up his inspection, and the result from that is that the duck is actually very original. He then gets down to the price, and he tells Rick that he would value the duck at $8,000. The lady hears this, and she is immediately excited. Well, let's see if Rick agrees to buy it for that price.
So you want $4,000 for it? Okay, I mean, I give you 4 because it does take a long time to sell it.
Okay, awesome.
right.
Please.
You want to go write her up?
All right, luckily I'm not superstitious, so I'll meet you up over there.
All right.